Hi, I'm Dr. Melva, your board-certified radiation oncologist and serial entrepreneur and investor. Welcome to the 1% Code podcast. I help top income earners create multiple streams of income to support the career they love or the one they want to love again. Learn more on the 1% Code podcast. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the 1% Code podcast. I'm your host, Dr. melvapinn-bingham, board-certified radiation oncologist, serial entrepreneur, and investor, and I help top income earners create multiple streams of income so they can love their career again. And I'm so excited about our guest today, Lee Yoder. Thanks so much for joining us in the show today.
Dr. Melva, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure. I'm excited.
You're welcome. So let me go ahead and formally introduce you. Lee was practicing as a physical therapist when he realized his true passion was building his own business and investing in real estate. He has taken this passion in considerable action to quickly build a portfolio with several small apartment buildings. Lee is the founder and visionary behind Threefold Real Estate Investing, and he's committed to forging a path that will generate incredible wealth and opportunity for all involved. His focus is driving the business forward by forging new relationships with top-notch professionals in the real estate world and bringing on more partners to invest alongside Threefold. Lee also hosts an exciting new podcast, Threefold Real Estate Investing, which focuses on multifamily real estate investing while also focusing on pursuing better relationships with family and a better walk with Christ. That's wonderful. So welcome to the show. Welcome to the 1% Code podcast. I love your introduction, and I just kind of want to open it up if you want to tell us more about that story or how you got started. Let's go from there.
Yeah, sure. Noah, so what I like to start with is, I kind of experienced two very different jobs and two very different work-life balances. And so maybe some people can they have similar experience. I'm not thinking the word I want to say, but they can relate to one or the other. So I had a job. I was a home health physical therapist. Okay. And I got to make my own schedule. It was very relaxed, not much stress, not bringing work home with me. And frankly, like some weeks, not even working 40 hours. So that was a great job for my family. My wife and I, at the time, we're just starting our family. Had young kids. She's staying home. So when you're staying home with the kids all day, it's good to have the husband come home and, relieve you a little bit. So It was great. I mean, for our family, it was awesome. Unfortunately, I don't feel like God created me for a job like that. So I was very bored, not fulfilled, not challenged. And so I didn't feel like I could do that job for very long. And so the company I was with, I didn't really know it at the time when I came on with them as a home health physical therapist, but they were actually a startup staffing company. They kind of got into the healthcare side, but mostly what they did is staff healthcare, but that doesn't matter. But they ended up bringing me in the office. They asked me if I wanted to, apply for the clinical director job, and they kind of wanted me to do that. And I jumped at the opportunity. So then I came in, I was doing some physical therapy, doing some office work. That position grew to where I was in the office full time as a clinical director, kind of more like a director of operations role, doing no physical therapy. And within a year of that, I was the pages had really turned. I was very busy with my job, but very fulfilled. It was challenging. It was exciting. So now the work is good, but now I don't have near the freedom and the bandwidth, and I am bringing work home with me. So now, with the wife and young family, it's not the family life that I wanted, that my wife and I, feel like God was calling us to. So, after a couple of years of that, it felt like, well, this isn't it either. And then I also experienced in this job what some do when they're climbing the corporate ladder, where like it felt like the goalposts kept getting moved. Like, if you just, put your head down and just work really hard for another year, man, there's going to be this incredible payoff, and you got this job promotion coming. And I think that was coming, but it just kind of kept moving back. And then it was like, yeah, once you get the job promotion, the money doesn't follow right away. That's going to be another couple of years. You got to be in that job. And it was like, man, I'm not willing to sacrifice this much time and this much, just not having the good family life, because my wife and I just feel like it's so important when the kids are young to really be there and be able to pour into them. So that wasn't working for me either. then I was turned on to real estate by a friend at my company. He's my partner today, which is kind of funny, kind of cool how God worked that out. But he gave me a real estate book. It wasn't a very good one, but I started reading a couple others, read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, started going down that rabbit hole and thought, okay, so maybe there's a way I could have the best of both worlds. I can have a job, a career that's fulfilling, challenging, exciting, but yet I can control my time and be home. Because I wanted to work. I really enjoy working. I want to work. Probably too much, frankly, but like I want to be able to control it so that, the things that I prioritize, my faith, my walk with Christ, and my wife and my kids, that I can actually prioritize those things versus when I was in the corporate job, climbing the corporate ladder, I felt like I just couldn't control that very well. So I couldn't prioritize the things that were most important to me like I wanted to. So I ended up leaving the corporate job. I took a pretty big pay cut and went back to home health physical therapy, that job that's boring, it's not challenging, it's not exciting. But I had a lot of bandwidth, a lot of freedom and flexibility in that job. So it allowed me to start my real estate side hustle.
Right.
So I like telling that story because probably people can identify with one or two of those. I think there's a lot of people that can identify with being in the corporate job and, hey, it's good work and it pays well and it does some things for my family, but it doesn't allow me the flexibility, the freedom. And not that everybody should leave and go and try to get into real estate full time, but I do think real estate can provide some supplemental income, some extra passive income that can relieve some of the pressure you feel for, providing for your family through, just through your W-2. So, and then also,
let me stop you there real quick and just ask you a couple points because I think you've made some good points. So you trained as a physical therapist, you were working, and then it sounds like you were really a self-starter where you went and created the position you wanted in the same job is what you said, essentially doing a different role with that same company.
Yep.
What mindset work did you do? You said you read a book. Was it the book alone? Was it your faith and prayer to make that leap? How you said to one, go into something more fulfilling that was maybe more difficult and not the balance you like. And then two, when you made that leap to leave, what was your mind? What did you have to be able to do that? Because I think that's where a lot of people get stuck.
Sure. Yeah. Because when I was doing the home health thing, I think I could have just stayed with that. I mean, frankly, my wife would have been fine with me being a home health physical therapist for the rest of my career. I get I would have been too, as far as the home aspect, like that was great. And that is most important. But yeah, it definitely was through prayer, Melva, and myself. And then my wife is amazing. And she wants me to be fulfilled. Like she was doing what she wanted to do and staying home with our kids. Like that's what she felt God was calling her to do. And while it's like the hardest job on the planet, and she wanted to rip her hair out most days, it was incredibly satisfying to be home with you. So it's that kind of thing. And that's kind of what it was. You got like when I was doing that job that was really difficult, but it was very satisfying. And I felt like that's what I was made to do. It was just that it was praying through that. Like, God, I know this job is good for my family. I know I've got the good flexibility, but I really don't feel like you created me to do this. And then I felt like hearing from God, like, yeah, Lee, that's okay. You're right. I didn't. I did create you to pursue your wife and your kids first and pursue, and walk with Christ first. But you can do that in many different jobs. I think, as a Christian, for me, following Christ, I think we have great freedom. I think a lot of times people, don't realize the freedom that we have. God does want us to enjoy this life. And we can do almost anything. I mean, I heard one pastor say it really well. He says, that the top two commandments, as Jesus told us, are love God, love people. And he says, so love God, love people, and do whatever you want. You can, we have great freedom. So I guess I felt like I was hearing that. So and then my wife, again, she wanted me to be fulfilled. She could tell, Lee, this isn't for you. Like, I get it. It's great for the family.
I'm just curious, did you have a circle of people around you who were taking these same leaps? Or real estate, or was it just the book you got? Or like
no, not really. Okay, so now we're talking about So once I was into the corporate job and looking to take that leap, definitely books and podcasts, getting into that. I mean, that is so important, Melvin, because as you know, and I'm sure you kind of teach, like when you don't know anybody that's done this, it just feels like, I mean, my wife would say this all the time, nobody does this. Nobody, leaves a job and goes in, and nobody buys apartment. Once we got an apartment buildings, like nobody buys apartment buildings. We don't know anybody that does that. But once you start listening to podcasts and getting those, it's like, yeah, actually a lot of people are doing this. We just don't know any of them. And it's not like a lot, like it's a big percentage of America. It's like 0.001%, sure. But like, it's still tens of thousands of people. So actually, there's tons of people doing this. We just don't know any of them because we have a small circle like most people. So yeah, podcasts and books really did help. I honestly, they weren't quite as big back then. They've blown up, and that probably just tells you the part of the market cycle. But I probably would have joined like a coaching program to get around those people even closer. But books, podcasts help. And then I did have a buddy from church who was already in real estate full time, and he was one that helped me kind of formulate the plan because he said, "Well, Lee, like I think he was an insurance salesman. He's like, but I was working from home, so I had a lot of flexibility." He's like, I got to a point where I was doing well enough, meeting my goals that I could work like 15 hours a week as an insurance salesman, and then I could start my real estate side hustle. He's like, "Is there any way you could do your job from home?" And I'm like, no, right? And I said, no, I couldn't, Melville. Like the corporate job, I could not. But that's what got my gears turning was like, but I can't do the home health real estate or the home health physical therapy from home, but it offered me a lot of flexibility. So he is the one that kicked off that thing. Went, okay, but if I go back to the job that I don't really love, but man, it's steady income. It's tons of flexibility. I'm not stressed at all. I can make phone calls as I'm driving all day. I have tons of bandwidth to add this side hustle. He really helped me get my gears turning in. And I like to share that part of the story because I think with COVID, more people than ever are working from home, right? And have that flexibility. So maybe more people than ever can start that side hustle, whether it's real estate or something else.
Right. And not even just the work at home aspect. And this is what I talk about a lot in the 1% code. You know, as physicians, I talk to our audience as looking at jobs that give you, like what you're saying, that bandwidth. You know, everything's not a 9-to-5 check-in, take call, have to have coverage. So like for me personally, and I've shared this with my audience, I work in a rural setting where I have the flexibility. I'm not taking call. So when I talk to some of my other physician colleagues, they're like so happy to be off that weekend. I'm like, you know, I don't do this anymore. I don't even know what it's like to have call. Wow. And I think finding those opportunities, like you said, whether it's working at home, flexibility, that allows you to step into something else. And, you know, like we've both talked about, it's real estate. So
for sure.
Well, that's awesome. So let me ask you, you know, how did you transition to grow the real estate portfolio while you were working full time? What was it that you were doing? How did you do it? Where'd you start?
Yeah, we started like a lot of people probably. We started with a flip. We flipped a single family home. You know, for my wife and I, she's not a risk taker, and she read Rich Dad Poor Dad and said, "I like the poor dad better." You know, so we wanted to start small, you know, and frankly, with my income, worst case scenario, we flip this house and we can't sell it and we can't rent it. We could have afforded that mortgage along with ours. And so it just felt like, okay, this is low risk. Worst case scenario, we're paying off 2 houses at the same time. You know, we're not in the streets. We're doing fine, whatever. Or, you know, we sell it at a small loss. So we flipped the house. You know, that was a good learning experience, Melvin, because I left a corporate job, very busy, took a big pay cut, but was spending much less time at work. But then I had a flip on top of it. And by the end of the flip, like the last 3 months when we're really hustling to get it done, I was putting in just as many hours, maybe even a little bit more than I was when I had that corporate job. Right. And then the amount we made off that flip was about the exact amount that my pay cut was. So I literally switched a corporate job. And it was, I mean, for the whole year, again, it was only like 3 months that it was busy. Yeah. But for those 3 months, it was kind of like same type hours. And the money I made just replaced the money I lost from leaving that busy job. So what that taught us, just real quick, is flipping is not investing. You can make good money at it. And I enjoy it. I think it's really cool, but it's not investing. You're trading time for money just like any other job. It's just a different job. It is in real estate, so it's a good learning experience. So it was better for my real estate career than just being in a corporate job, because in my corporate job, I was learning nothing about real estate. But that's how we got started. And then we jumped into a duplex. Okay. So kind of moving toward multifamily. Because again, the whole time I'm listening to podcasts like yours, Melville, where I'm learning about real estate. And I just keep hearing people say, you know, you got to get into multifamily and go bigger. You know, if I could have just started all over again, I would have went bigger faster. So I'm just hearing that. So like, okay, let's just jump right to a duplex. Let's not do any more single family. Let's not do any more flips. So the duplex, you know, basically flipped that, but then rented it for a little bit, experience being a landlord, having rented experience, you know, somewhat passive income, because we really weren't, after we flipped it and got renters in there, we didn't really do much of anything.
So you were self-managing, or you went with a
property? Yeah, self-managing. Yep. Okay. But like basically not getting any calls, and, you know, we're making a few $100 a month, and it's like, okay, this is investing. That's the point, is like, this is what investing looks like, is when you're doing very little work And every month you're getting paid. And I don't have to go do this again in order to get paid. I'm going to keep getting paid as long as I own this. And we did sell that and got into a little bit bigger multifamily, but we started seeing the proof of concept there.
Okay. So tell me, it sounds like you have a natural progression. Tell me, a lot of what I talk about is leverage. And the 1% code is, like you said, you're not doing it all yourself. You're not all active. You're not. And I remember my husband he was on stage. We went to one of these big real estate courses a long time ago. And it's like him with these big glasses and it's dust everywhere. And he has like a hammer in his hand. And he's like, this is how I used to be in projects. Now I'm working, like on my business, not in my business, although he still gets in and gets active. Like he's not looking at property right now as we speak and meeting with a contractor for lunch. So he's definitely an active real estate investor. But a lot of what I teach and what we try to do our best is leverage so that we have a team and we're delegating and there's an opportunity to make money when we're not there. How have you created leverage? Do you have a team? How have you built a team now? And kind of bring us into what it is that you're doing now.
Yeah, for sure. So the next step after the duplex was a 16 unit actually. And the reason, that felt like, and it really was, that felt like such a big jump. A 16 unit just felt like I might as well have been buying, the Empire State Building. It just felt like something, unattainable. But the reason I was able to get my mind around it and the reason I was able to go after it was because I joined my local RIA. And my RIA here in Cincinnati, Ohio, has an apartment focus group. And the guy leading that group became a mentor to me. And I actually brought him in on that first deal, gave him 10% for just kind of helping me, just coaching me. That's it. And so that was a big part of my team, is having a mentor, someone that had done it before, someone that was like, hey, this 16 units, no big deal. Oh, okay. Well, it feels incredible to me, but since you're with me, then it feels like, it's safer. And he was like, let me use some of his paperwork. And then I knew right away I did not want to manage it. So I brought in a property management team. And that to me feels like the best partner ever, because again, for them, like they had 800 units. To add a 16 unit is like small, fries to them. Like it's nothing.
Right.
So for them to be like, oh yeah, we'll take that. Okay. Well, how's that work? Oh, we'll just come out day one. We'll hand out letters. And we're like, we're going to take care of everything. And so it's like, wow. So I'm not going to be, all I have to do is find the deal, put it together, take it down, and manage the money, manage the numbers, and hire the right property manager.
Now, was this 10% or was it higher for commercial with the 16 unit for the property management?
8%. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But they do take the first month's rent when they lease new units. So, when you figure that in, it's probably closer to 10.
Nice.
10 or 11. So, so that was the team, bringing them in. I also used a mortgage broker on some of those first ones, to help me get the loan. So when that's a really difficult part of the process. So when and then you're using brokers, obviously. I think brokers control most of the deals. So I'm using brokers to help me find the deals. I'm using mortgage brokers to help me get financing for the deal. Then I'm using my property manager to manage the property for me. So that was the team early on. We took down 3 small apartment buildings, a 16 unit, an 8 unit, and a 10 unit. And that was the team I used for all that. Then I had a couple investors. We kept these really small, just did joint ventures. And I pretty much, as far as like being the asset manager and kind of the one running the whole thing, that was all me. I was mostly really just bringing in money partners. But did those first 3, actually brought all those full cycle and sold all those this past year. And then we've gotten into a little bit bigger ones, bigger syndications. We got a 45 unit, a 47 unit, both this year, and about to get a 96 unit. So the team has grown a little bit where, it's still, mortgage brokers are helping us still, still using brokers to find these deals. We have a property management company that we're working with. It is a different one. We've moved on and found what we feel like is an even better property manager. And then I actually brought in an equity partner, like a partner in the business, and gave him some equity to take kind of the asset management side, where I'm more finding the deals, finding the money, putting everything together. And then, and I do pretty much all the financials. And then he does like the asset management as far as like managing our manager, and then kind of being a project manager with all the CapEx stuff we're doing. So that's
okay. So you just gave us a ton of nuggets. Let me slow you down and reverse it for my audience who may just be listening to this episode the first time and they're new to syndications. They're new to all those terms you use. So could you just kind of define how you're doing this? Are these syndications? Are your the ones that you had, I think the last one I heard was a 96. You mentioned some other 1724.
Yep.
Are those joint ventures, or have you created a fund? Do you have a securities lawyer you're working with? Like, tell us a
Yeah,
little bit
good
more about
point.
that and kind of define it for
Yep,
our listeners.
yep, yeah. And I actually just did a presentation on this. I'd be happy to send it to anybody. It was called "The Anatomy of Apartment Syndication," and I just did a presentation at one of the RIAs, the Cincinnati and Columbus RIA,
Okay.
and in front of Anthony Chara, who's an apartment syndicator coach. But basically, like the 45 unit that I got, the very first true apartment syndication I did, how that worked, Melva, is first of all, a broker friend of mine, a guy I met on Bigger Pockets, became a good friend of mine. He's an investor himself, but he
relationships. We always talk about relationships in your network.
I say, like, the only reason I got this deal was because of this relationship. That's it. Okay. I mean, because somebody brought it to him, and he brought it to me and me only. It was a really good deal. Only because of that, because of this guy, because he got it and he didn't want it and he thought of me because we were friends and he wanted me to have the deal. So that was huge. So he brought us that. We put an offer, we go back and forth. Once the offer is accepted, that one, 2.1 million was the purchase price. We had to raise 550,000 for the down payment, for inspection. We do take an acquisition fee, which is 2% of the purchase price. And the reason we do that is because we put a ton of time into finding a property. That's the hardest thing to do, especially in a market like this. And since we do this full time, my partner and I, and once we take down the property, I'll explain this a little bit more, but we really don't get much cash flow ourselves. Almost all of that goes to our investors. So we would not be able to do this full time off of what we get in year 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, really, except for the acquisition fee. So we do take an acquisition fee that pays us. So that's part of the money we have to raise from investors. So we brought on 7 investors, 50 to 100,000 each, raised $550,000 to take down this 2.1 million.
What was the time frame? How fast did you do that?
So usually you get 60 days.
And you raised 550,000 in 60 days?
Yeah, I mean, but
congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. We've been, but we've been talking to people for a long time. I had already done the 16 unit, the 8 unit, the 10 unit. I did all of those with 3 different investors. All 3 of those investors got in on my next deals, because we had sold those. So I made them some money. And so they put it back in. So I developed a track record in the RIA. That was huge, Melva. Being part of that RIA, we got a couple investors.
Can you just define what that is for anybody listening who doesn't know that?
The Real Estate Investment Association. And like I said, you should have one in every city. If not, I'm sure you got other meetups, but you should have a real estate investment association per se. So those are local people that are already really interested in investing. So you go there, it's like, a very warm sale, right? Or a very warm lead, like they call it in sales, because these people know real estate, they want to invest in real estate, and then you come and they're in your area and you say, I've got this deal. And they're like, yeah, that's why I'm here. This is the kind of stuff I want to do. So that helped. But yes, so we raised 550. You get 60 days to close. So we did an inspection. Yes, you have to have syndication attorneys. So we paid $10,000 for a syndication attorney to put up all the paperwork. We have to give that to our investors, present it to them, have them go through all that, sign a bunch of stuff. So there's some extra headache to go into apartment syndication.
So just because I'm having these conversations and we're kind of looking and learning and I'm teaching my audience about syndication. So the $10,000 price point, you're working with accredited investors kind of in the 506B. Is that how you're setting it up? Or you're doing like
506B, yeah. So they don't have to be,
okay.
Yep, they don't have to be accredited. They don't have to be accredited. Okay. They can be. So if you do 506B or 506C, you're going to have to file the same paperwork because it's Regulation D under the SEC code. So you still get the same. But if you do 506C, now I can jump on Facebook and advertise for it, or 506C, because I'm only accepting accredited investors. As long as I'm 506B, which is what we do, I cannot advertise because I'm letting accredited and sophisticated investors in. And a sophisticated investor is somebody that's not accredited, so they don't have $1 million net worth or make $300,000 or $250,000 a year, or $200,000 a year as an individual, $300,000 as a couple. They don't meet that requirement to be accredited, but they meet the requirement of being a sophisticated investor, meaning they know enough to make the decision. And it's kind of a thing that they say themselves. I mean, no one tests you on that to make sure you're sophisticated, but they self-identify as a sophisticated investor.
Okay, so you did it as a 506B, where you had a pre-established relationship with these people because you've done other deals. Point. Okay, did you have a hard time making that? Because I've talked to a lot of syndicators and meeting with SEC lawyers between the 506B or C, accredited versus advertising. What's your kind of take on that?
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, we just knew some of the people that want to invest with us weren't accredited. So it kind of made the decision for us. I mean, if you
Okay.
go accredited, it's nice because you can advertise for it, obviously. And accredited investors, are ready to go. But yeah, your funnel's a little bit smaller. You can't take sophisticated investors, and there's a lot of people out there that, I mean, if you're working and you have kids, to already have $1 million net worth is probably pretty difficult, right? Like even if you're, between the two of you, I mean, because again, you have to be making $300,000 as a couple to meet it on that side. So let's say a couple's making $200,000 a year, and they've
Right.
got a few kids. Sure, they're living a great life, but they're not meeting the requirement on income because
For
they have to
sure.
make $300,000 as a couple, and they're probably not putting away that much money. I mean, you've got a house, you got kids, I mean, you not both
Right.
know how that goes. So those are people that, yeah, they might have an extra $25,000-$50,000 to invest, but they don't have $1 million net worth yet. So you're
Right.
excluding all of those people that I just explained right there if you go 506C.
Right. And then with 506B, and again, for those who are just joining or listening to the podcast, we're talking syndications. Lee is a syndicator, right? I can call you a syndicator. That's what you are.
Sure.
Yeah, a
Yep.
syndicator. And we're just really going through some of the terms. So if you're at that point where you're getting into syndication or even evaluating a deal to understand how it's set up, because there are
Yep.
a lot of people, they hold their money tight and they want to know, okay, what is the structure of the partnership or, securities or however you call it that I'm getting into. So with the
Yep.
506B, are you starting or do you suggest for, let's say, someone who's starting this or they're thinking about doing this themselves, do you suggest they start invest their own investment club first to build these relationships? Or do you think what you did where you did them with private investors JV first and then that's how you got your investors? What would you suggest to someone just starting out?
Yeah, I tell you, I wouldn't say you need to go with one over the other.
Okay.
I would say, if you're going to syndicate an apartment, um, I think you need some experience, like some real estate experience. Now, maybe it's not you personally, maybe it's your partner. If somebody brought me a deal, brought me a 100 unit apartment complex, and they've never done real estate before, probably they don't have a bunch of investors lining up to be in with them on their very first deal. But if
Right.
they bring it to me and they go to investors and say, "Hey, our team already has a couple hundred units," because now he's talking about me, and I just say that because that's what I did when I brought
Okay.
in the guy leading the apartment focus group for the RIA, and I had this 16 unit. I didn't really have to raise that much money, but I could go to people and say, "Hey, our team already has a couple hundred units. Now I have zero, but Mark is on my team. He's investing with me. He's going to be on the deal. He did the
Right.
inspection with me. He's doing everything. So I'm not lying at all. Our team does have a couple hundred units. I don't have anything to do with those, but my teammate Mark does. So you can go that route, Melva, and
Okay.
and
Okay.
borrow somebody else's credibility or experience. But if you're going to do it yourself, you probably need to have some experience. And I think starting a meetup is great. Starting, a great Facebook group like you did, Melva. But when I looked at doing that, it's like, man, there's already a lot of them. Um,
Right.
I'll just go and be a part of one of those and be vocal and be active, and people, sort of kind of going, okay, like in this group, there's a lot of people that are interested in real estate. Lee is one of the people really doing it.
Right.
And
So
he's
you
really,
differentiated yourself
yeah, and he's really
and give
going. And
value.
so once I came back to the group and was like, hey, over the past year, I've been telling you guys all the stuff I'm doing. Well, now I've got one that you guys can partner with me on. It was kind of like, yeah, we've been hearing about what you're doing for a year. It seems like you're, taking off, and yeah, we'll partner with you. So I think there's a couple different ways to do it, but
Yeah.
you're going to need to start networking, whether you start your own group or join somebody else's. And I would just say you need a track record or your partner does, because not many people are going to want to invest with you on your very first deal, especially if you jump into a big one. I mean, some people might jump in on a flip with you, but
Right.
if you want to buy an apartment building, not many people are going to jump in on your very first one.
Right, right. Very, very, very good advice. And just some other terms that I hear kind of pushing around. And I guess this is what you're saying. So like GP or general partner. So you pretty much had a co-GP. That would be how it said, right? On your deal, the
Yes.
first one.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. And now are you acting, so did you say you're the asset manager in your syndication company, or you're a general partner, or you're the operator? Like where are you in the syndications?
Sure.
Yes, you do.
I'm kind of multiple of those terms. So when we
Okay.
structure the deal, the way we did that 45 unit, just for references, the 50% of the apartment was owned by the general partners, and that was myself and my partner, Kevin. So we owned 50% of the building, or the equity, right? Or of the shares, however you want to say. And then our investors that brought all the money, but did nothing, right? Like don't do any work. They own 50% of the equity.
So they were limited partners. Is that the term?
They're limited partners. Okay. And the reason they're limited is because they're not signing on the loan. So their risk is limited to their investment. So if we lost the building, my partner and I, the bank could come after our personal residence because we're general partners. We're signing on the loan. It's a recourse loan. So that means if they take back the building, but the building's not worth what we owe them, they could come after our personal residence and take some of our personal wealth to make up for that deficit. They can't do that for our investors. They're limited. They'll just lose their investment, which sucks, but at least they're limited to that. But the way most syndications work is those limited partners, they get 50% of the equity, but they get a lot of the cash flow because they usually get a preferred return of like 7-8%, sometimes only 6. We do 8, but when the property profits and makes a profit, the first big majority chunk of the profit goes to the investors until they get their 8% return. And then whatever's left over, that's split 50-50. And then, so that, they're getting a lot of that. And then when the building sells, those, again, the investors get all their money back because they're the ones who put money in. So all their money has to be paid back. And then whatever profit is left over, that's split 50-50. So
are they getting like a monthly interest?
Quarterly.
Payment?
We do quarterly.
Quarterly? And that's as soon as you put the money in. Okay, so the distribution.
So, well, so you're gonna put the money into the bank account. So we create a new LLC for each property, and then that LLC opens up its own bank account. So you're not sending money to Lee. You're sending money to Dayton. It was Dayton 45 LLC is our first one. So Dayton 45 LLC has its own bank account. So when you give us a check, we put it right into that bank account, and then when we go and purchase property, the $550,000 comes out of that bank. Well, it was only like 400 at closing or whatever. So 400,000 comes out of that bank account to pay for it. And so that's where you put your money in and how we pay for it.
So I have another question just as an offshoot with that. And hopefully we're not veering too much from where you wanted to discuss today, but I'm learning and finding this is very helpful, I think, for anyone listening. So when you're going to a bank, let's say like traditional financing for an investment property, and they want to see, like your 6 months of cash or whatever money you have. When you're working with investors that are over 20%, are they coming in on the loan and paperwork with you, or you're not because you're doing general partnership? How's that working out?
So usually, the idea, like I just laid out there, they're limited partners, so they should not be signing on the loan. When you work with smaller regional banks, if you have somebody with more than 20%, they do like them to sign on the loan. So
that's what I thought.
There's a couple different ways to do that. You could add them to the GP as well. Somebody can kind of be on both sides. They can be a general partner, and you could give them a little bit of the general partner equity, which that on this next deal, we're going to do that. So if you had an investor, you got to think, Melva, though, the investors together only get 20%. So even somebody bringing $100,000, I think on that deal, they owned 9% of the deal. Okay. So if they brought $225,000, they would have been, 20%. So in that case, the bank would have wanted them to sign. Now, there's different ways to get around that. If you do an agency loan, which means Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae, a government loan, they are set up for syndications. The local banks aren't really. Like that's not really something they do a lot of. They like the joint ventures where everybody signs on the loan and all the equity, because the bank doesn't really like the fact that only 50% of the equity, 50% of the ownership of the building is signing on the loan, which is the case for us because the general partners are the ones signing on the loan and we only own 50% of the building.
Okay.
So for a bank, they're like, 50% of the ownership isn't signing on the loan. They could just walk away and have no recourse. They like to have 80% sign on the loan. Right. So we did have to get creative actually on that one. This is getting in the weeds a little bit, but we did actually have a few of our investors create an LLC of their own and had the LLC sign on the loan and do a corporate guarantee. So it was a pass-through. So they still were not actually on the hook, but it kind of satisfied the bank getting their 80% of the equity signing on the loan. So there was a little bit of a workaround that way. We don't want to do that going forward. When you do an agency loan, you never have to do that. Your limited partners aren't supposed to have to sign on the loan. But if anybody's over 20%, the bank does want them signed. And a lot of times the bank does want 80% of the equity signing the loan. So it's just something you got to work through with the bank. If they're comfortable with you, they can probably be more lenient. But yeah, there's a lot to work through on that end for sure.
Well, Lee, I could definitely tell you know your stuff. I mean, you were able to answer the questions that we didn't prepare on the spot quite eloquently. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can tell you are seasoned and you understand, what to do and how to approach different things. So tell me more. I know you have an ebook. How can we find you on social media? Tell us more about your book and more about if there's someone listening and they say, hey, I would love to learn or invest with Lee and his group. Can you tell us how we can find you? A little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to interact with anybody that wants to learn more. Yeah, would maybe want to invest with us or wants to talk with us. We are on social media. I am, Lee. You can just look up Lee Yoder on Facebook or LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram too. Probably more active on Facebook and LinkedIn. Check out our website, or you can find Threefold Real Estate Investing on Facebook and LinkedIn as well. I've got a business and a personal account. But check out our website. It's threefoldrei.com. So that's THREEFOLD REI as in realestateinvesting.com. On the website, we do have a free ebook. Thanks for mentioning that. It's called 5 Steps to Passive Income for the Full-Time Dad. We're very passionate about other dads and moms, but my partner and I are both dads, so we identify with dads a lot. What you're trying to teach people that there is a different way that you can make income, you can improve your family's financial position without simply trading more time, for more money. So I understand most people are going to work and not do real estate full time. They're going to have a job. That's fine, but hopefully, we think people can use real estate. If you can save some money and invest it in real estate, make your money work for you, make some money off of your money through real estate. And so, I just use the example, like if you thought, man, if I got this job promotion, I can make an extra $10,000 a year. That would be great because that'll help us send our kids to private school. That'll help us, take an awesome vacation. That'll help my wife be able to go down to part-time, which she, we've always wanted her to be able to do. That's all. Like, I totally get that. But I think there's more ways than just one to get that extra 10,000. Most people would think like, okay, so I got to go after this promotion, and this promotion gets me that extra 10,000. But what the promotion also does is increase your time at work, probably your responsibility, maybe your travel. So you've just improved your family's financial position, but you've also cut down on the time at home and the relationships you're going to be able to build. Right? You probably add more stress, so maybe you don't have as much bandwidth at home. And I don't like to see those things. I think if you could save 50, even $100,000, if you can save some money, if you can be diligent and do that. I mean, even 25,000, you get that into, an investment and you can do it passively. If you partner with somebody like us, that money can start making money for you. So, you put in 50,000, you can get often, 8 to 10% return. You're making $5,000 a year. Suddenly, like, you're making that just off that money. You're not doing any work. And as that builds, then we sell or refinance, you get that money back. Maybe you make more. You can put it in again. Now it's doubled to 100 over, a few years. So I think that's a way to build your income. Like, that's the great thing about multifamily. And I'm dragging on here. I can bring this to an end, but that's the great thing I love about rentals. And I know you, Melva, too. Like, you're building wealth just like the stock market does. Like, you're building that nest egg because you're building wealth through real estate, but you're also getting paid now. When we invest in apartment buildings and when our investors come with you, they start making money in the first quarter that we have it. We pay quarterly, it's like a dividend payment, but we have quarterly distributions. So you start making money now. And that's kind of very different than a stock market, like a 401k, where it's like, you can't touch that money until you're 65. You put your money into real estate, you can start making money today. Again, that like maybe helps you send your kids to private school without having to work even more hours. So that's why I want people to go to the website. That's what we're trying to help people learn more about and do. We just feel like that's God's calling for us and our family. We think maybe it's God's calling for other families. So we'd love to talk to people that are also interested in learning how to do that through real estate.
Well, I really, really enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing all your nuggets. I really liked when I was able to ask you questions we didn't talk about, because it really shows like your stuff. And I think you absolutely have a calling in this. Real estate is exciting, right? It's kind of hard to stop. This is like the second real estate conversation I've had today. And you just look at the clock and you're like, oh my God, we're still talking about it. And we haven't even covered everything, all the nuggets, but you dropped so many pearls today. And I appreciate you coming and talking to the audience. go out and check out Lee Yoder with the Threefold Real Estate Investment Group and the website. Again, just to repeat that for us, it's threefoldrei.com. Is that correct?
Correct. You nailed it.
And that's 3 spelled out. And get the free book, even if you're a woman. I learn a lot from men, so it's fine. Even for the moms. We definitely want to learn from the dads because they always seem to really figure it out. Let's be honest. So thank you so much, Lee, for being on this episode. And I hope that we can continue our conversation and check in and maybe do some deals together at some point.
Me as well. I agree, Melva. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for listening to another episode of the 1% Code Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Melva. If you enjoyed this episode, please go check out Lee Yoder, and we will see you on the next episode. Thanks so much. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the 1% Code Podcast, please share with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating, and I would love your 5-star review. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on all social media channels at Dr. spelled out DoctorMelva at Dr. Melva. And I want to make sure that you and anyone else you know that would benefit from the 1% Code Podcast is a member of my private community on Facebook, the 1% Code Collective. I would love for you to join me there. Link in the bio. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.